Am I dreaming or what? You transferred only 63 cents. Ashley sends us $5,000 every month. Why should you be concerned about us? My dad's voice was so loud that I had to remove the phone from my ear. I became completely limp from sheer bewilderment, shame, and utter disbelief. I had just sent my parents $5,000 earlier that morning. That quantity of money did not just materialize. For weeks, I had gone without food, worked many shifts, and slept very little. With every cent, it seemed like my blood was being drawn out. I was treated like garbage, they say now. Prior to my ability to respond, my mother cut me off. Her voice's sharp, displeased tone always hit me right in the chest. Lauren Ashley's a model. She's busy, but she still finds time to take care of us. You just live alone, spend money however you like. Do you even think about your family? Something within me started to give way. Greetings, Amanda. Always Ashley. The small girl's beautiful smile and big eyes were just the beginning of the sparkle that illuminated her whole being. It was as if my presence was non-existent any time I tried to assume the role of leader. Despite that, incredibly, it was unfair. This is something I've been doing on a monthly basis, and I sent $5,000. My father remained unmoved, even though my voice trembled, with a combination of exhaustion and annoyance. You need to stop being dishonest. She informed us that Ashley is the sole source of funding. You sent 63% of that total. It is complete. Put an end to being so rude. They cut off the phone before I could complete my sentence. My trembling fingers stayed tight to my ear as I sat still. Can you tell me why 63 cents? Doing that would be too much for me. At last it became clear. The reason we started donating under the moniker Rainbow was due to Ashley's insistence. Let's keep it a secret and make it fun, she had said. I just thought it was one of her peculiar quirks when it happened. I can now discern. Uncertainty pervaded. My records showed that $5,000 had been sent, but this shameful 63-cent transfer became linked to my identity. My bank app was visible in my palm. My savings were nearly gone. In order to do my part, I had been living off of frozen meals and putting in additional hours at the office. Just why was it done? Rather than risk becoming the target of accusations, blame, and shame, I let out a yell. Interestingly, though, not a single object got away. An oppressive silence that lassoed my throat. This wasn't going to be an innocent mistake, I realized then. That betrayed trust. I used to believe that in order to find love, you had to put in some effort. I really need to work on my self-control. My GPA was perfect. Whether I didn't voice my displeasure, probably I would get the same disapproving expression from my parents as they did from Ashley. Still, that statement never came to fruition. Ashley came into this world 5 years before I did, and my life changed the moment she did. As far as anyone could tell, she was the most beautiful baby ever. A pleasant sound was produced by the nursing team. The word spread. Strangers would approach us and gaze at her whenever we were in the grocery store. When my mom would say she's going to be a star, she would sound elated as if she had won the jackpot. However, I clung to the side of the cart as I wore a sweatshirt that had the name of another person and a pair of short, worn-out pants. People were only interested in me because they wanted to tell me how different we appeared. What a sweetheart. Clearly this is her brother or sister, right? Exhale now. Oh, well, her smile is pretty sweet too. Adorable smile. It spanned my entire existence. That was excellent. Plain, distracting noises. Ashley wore different clothes every season. Ballet, piano, painting, gymnastics, and every other extracurricular she could think of were all on her schedule. Additional goods could not be funded according to the information we received? You understand, right, Lauren? You're the older sister. After hearing that statement so many times, it seemed like it had become an indelible part of me. I had a revelation one winter I couldn't wear, even my largest coat. I was told by my mom to wear layers. Just wear 2 hoodies, it's fine, while she went shopping with Ashley for a new pink wool peacoat and matching gloves. To put it another way, it was inevitable. When Ashley was around 8 or 9 years old, she had a tantrum over dinner. What I really want is the independence to pick my own bedroom. That space served as my workplace for a long time. My desk bookshelf and beloved posters were all crammed into that small space. The possession belonged to me. The next morning, though, my mom told me guilt-free, "You're moving to the living room. Ashley needs space to express herself." I felt the pressure of my grandparents' antique pictures while I slept on the futon next to the bookshelf. At night, I would sob into my pillow, praying no one would be there to listen. It wasn't until my grandparents paid attention to me that anyone paid attention to me at all. I can still remember how many hours I would sit on Grandpa's lap. He said I was calm and perceptive. Thank goodness for an old soul. My dad gave me the name Lauren, which is reminiscent of the spring flowers he would produce in his yard. According to them, it stood for subdued authority. That was my only option for quite some time. However, as Grandpa went away, that cozy feeling disappeared. I felt a chill creep up the walls, a little bit more aggressive. The prejudice stands out more. Ashley had never been asked to share. Asking is unnecessary. When I tried to stop her from taking what she wanted, she would just roll her eyes and say, "You're obviously not making use of it." Once I found out that she had stolen the gel pens that I had diligently kept in my drawer for weeks. Upon my confrontation with her, she beamed at me. "You're so dramatic, Lauren. Chill out." Upon learning the news, my mom moaned and said, "Get rid of it. She's not an adult yet." I was told to hold my head up even when Ashley was wrong. "You're the older sister." That statement keeps coming back, almost like a curse whenever things become tough. I should have known better than to argue after this. At the age of 16, Ashley already had a personal math tutor and a walk-in wardrobe. I used to work part-time at a local cafe to save up for college applications. Upon informing my parents of my post-university career aspirations of becoming a school nurse, they ridiculed me. "We don't have the funds for it. Do your best to maintain reasonable expectations." But what about Ashley? I had a feeling the answer would be yes even before I asked. Lauren is special. Don't judge her by other standards. All pretense had been abandoned by them. Consequently, I opted out of furthering my education after high school, began working full-time in a nearby warehouse, and eventually moved in with 3 total strangers due to the oppressive heat. If only I had made a bigger fuss and asserted my authority. I frequently wonder what would have happened if I had tried harder. Having said that, I did not grow up like that. I was raised to always give it my best. Never lose heart as you fight. Make room for Ashley to shine. But the worst part, I did take it. I convinced myself that everything was simply ordinary, that maybe I didn't deserve anything better, and that for other people, being born into fame is enough. It wasn't until Ashley contacted years later that I realized how firmly those feelings of shame had taken root inside of me. It's only right that we give back to our parents. Let us show them how much we appreciate it. The chance to be treated decently eventually shattered my heart. Finally, to achieve something as sisters. In the end, I caved. I was completely unaware that I was redescending into the same trap, even though I was dressed for a more mature event. First, someone has to pick up the phone. Ashley sounded very enthusiastic and kind, but her delivery was hurried, as if she were practicing. "Lauren, do you have any idea what's been on my mind? Today would not have been possible without our parents, would it? All we've achieved would not have been possible without them, you know." It caught me off guard because Ashley seldom ever thanked anybody, much less used the pronouns us and her interchangeably. "Going on," she said, "it has occurred to me that we may divide $5,000 each month. My deepest gratitude. To show how much we care, I would want to act on their behalf. It's a huge undertaking. It broke my heart." "Would $5,000 work?" It seemed like she was asking to split a pizza instead of my entire salary, given how casually she said it. "Of I, 500, I murmured again, unable to hide my astonishment. "Ashley, that's quite a bit." "I know," she said, "but try to picture the look of horror on their faces. They're going to be ecstatic. When we divide it up, it's actually not that much." Fear gripped me. I got the idea that Ashley had money, though I was ignorant of her particular income, because she worked as a part-time model when she was a student. An agency spotted her, and our parents made it sound like she was going to become a renowned actress. Am I when I was an accountant before I made little over $3,000 a month. Of that, $1,400 went toward rent, and the rest went toward electricity, groceries, insurance, and everything else that made my existence exceedingly risky. That amount of $5,000 a month would require me to go into my savings, which is obviously not feasible. A part of me wanted to say yes, even after all this time. Maybe I just wanted to be liked, or maybe I was trying to prove that I wasn't selfish. Maybe I thought we were now on equal ground. So I gave my assent. "Yes," I said, "all right. The responsibility is on us." Even though it stung, I felt good about spending all of my funds in the first month. It felt like I had finally achieved something worthy. It became apparent after 2 months that I would require more money to keep this going. On weekends, I worked as a security guard for a construction site an hour away from my apartment. The worst part of my shifts was standing for 12 hours straight, in the cold or heat depending on the weather. I had little time to relax since I was in constant agony. During the week, I was preoccupied with spreadsheets and deadlines, and on the weekends, I wore steel boots and sunburns. Until I finally broke through, I told myself it was only a phase. It would only be a few months. I cut off sugar, caffeine, and processed foods from my diet, and I also gave up buying new clothes, coffee, Netflix, and gym memberships. I started studying online whenever I could find 5 minutes, whether it was on buses, in restrooms, or during lunch breaks, in the hopes that earning a professional credential would increase my income. There were evenings when I dozed off, while still dressed with my phone in my hand and the alarms for both jobs set. Nothing changed the fact that nobody ever thanked me. Ashley was the only one who kept in touch with me. My dad was at a restaurant, and neither of my parents reached out to see how I was doing. The only thing I got was pictures of my mom smiling with her new pocketbook. She would compose a text message adorned with glitter and hearts exclaiming, "See how joyful they are." My chest would twist whenever I attempted to grin at the TV. I was breaking down to make their lives easier. Everyone seemed oblivious. The memory of a Saturday night stands out in my mind. The nights were still cold, even though spring had arrived, and I was stationed at the construction site wearing 3 layers under my clothing. I was out cold, my breath was coming out in clouds. My toes were frozen, and I was shaking so badly that I could scarcely hold my thermos. So when a foreman came by on his lunch break to mention, "It caught me off guard to see a lady out here. Do I seem all right?" I was too tired to say anything, but I nodded anyway. He returned 5 minutes later with a protein snack and a mug of hot coffee. "Here," he joked, "you should be warmer. You're exerting far too much effort." I trembled when I received it, not from fear of the cold, but from gratitude for the kindness. I have been invisible for a long time, no one working there. Aside from pay, I am the only one. It was that night in the automobile when I cried. At that very second it dawned on me. Maybe it's because taking a cup of coffee from a stranger made me feel loved more than I have in months at home. Still, I didn't give up. Another month has gone by. The quaternion. The certification exam was not a problem for me. Although it didn't provide immediate results, it did inspire hope. Slight optimism that the hard work may bear fruit in the end. But the money, as soon as I got my hands on it, it vanished. Her plan all along was to open a joint account named Rainbow Fund, and Ashley had carried it out. As if we're sharing a priceless gem, she had commented, "It sounds nicer. I choose to ignore it." Perhaps that could have been a wiser decision. I texted Ashley one evening after sending $5,000 for that month. "Are we both using the same account to send? I wanted to be sure." She didn't waste any time responding. "Sure thing, rest assured. I will take care of the technical details. Do not worry about Mom and Dad not receiving your transfers. I will ensure that they do. How about we keep it under wraps?" To me, it seemed like a total turnoff. You can be sure that I was very exhausted, ill with combat fatigue, and far too nervous for peace and quiet. I put down my phone after giving it a signal that it seemed to be able to see me. It was then that the collapse began. Whenever I stopped relying on my gut feelings and started believing other people's lies. As ChatGPT put it, it occurred in the afternoon on a Tuesday. I was in the midst of reviewing a client's spending report when my work phone started calling. On another occasion, after another. In the time it took my parents to leave one message, they left 6. I couldn't take my eyes off the screen as my pulse raced. Something had to have happened. I may be mistaken. There might be a major health issue. The 7th ring was picked up by me. Just as I was about to speak, my father's voice exploded from the speaker. "Whatever is wrong with you, I don't understand." I was taken aback to the point where I nearly dropped the phone. "Dad, what's happening? Are you seriously saying that we have no idea what we're doing? Why is it 63 cents? What the fuck? That's so disrespectful. Does this make you laugh?" My thoughts were rushing, and I blinked. "I don't get it. Lauren, the money." "Wow, 63 cents? I thought you were joking when you sent us that." For a split second, I thought maybe he had misunderstood the number I was trying to reach and called the incorrect one. I put in the paperwork on Friday, and now I don't know what to do with the $5,000 that was given. Stop being a liar, I'm furious, and I let out a bark. Ashley showed us the statement. She sent $5. Your name was involved in a 63,03 transfer. All of a sudden, a lot changed. I started having trouble breathing, and my hands went numb. The money has already been transferred to the Rainbow account. As Ashley put it, "Lay it down. Your insularity knows no bounds. As for you, Ashley takes care of everything. Your complete lack of concern for us is unbelievable. Enjoying life on your own terms while spending money on random things. Out of nowhere, my mom's trembling voice sounded. Do you know that one of your daughters handles everything while the other treats us like beggars and offers us pocket change? Are you familiar with the sensation, there is no one I dislike more than you? The call is over. Right away, I did not shift from my seat. Even from a mile away, the faint buzz of the office was audible. A computer user across the room was giggling uncontrollably. Behind me, a printer squealed. My terror had immobilized me. Can you tell me why 63 cents? There was no way. My fingers trembled as I opened my banking app. The agreement was there. Keep it up, $5,000 was sent to Ashley's connected account with the label Rainbow Fund. So what happened then? Before you know it, it was as if a switch was flipped. In the first 30 days, Ashley recommended utilizing Rainbow to shield senders' identities and keep receivers in the dark. I had given my approval in the mistaken belief that it would be cute. The names that showed up on the other side were not ones that I had checked. It would appear that Ashley had her name included on every single payment. And what about my own? There was a single 63-cent placeholder transaction that had my name associated with it, apparently so the account's activity could continue, maybe to make it seem like I was still actively participating. It seemed like she was handing over $5,000 every month to my parents who believed I was treating them like trash. It was all set in stone. Shockingly strong, it struck a chord with me. That night I slept poorly. As I reclined in bed, my jaw and chest clenched, I fixated on the ceiling above. Every one of my options had been exhausted. Assisted my parents by sacrificing my health, sleep, friendships, and time. Were their impressions of me truly accurate? For fun, feeling disappointed. One more ding, your phone was mine. Here we go again with Ashley's correspondence. I apologize. Keep in mind that I suggested that Mom and Dad hide everything beneath Rainbow. However, there appears to have been a minor hiccup with the payment procedure. You can be calm. There will be a solution really shortly. You should relax. Could you please unwind? Even though reading the letter made my eyes burning, I persisted. That was done on purpose. Everything was prepared. It is a lie wrapped in emoticons and fake kindness. No one responded. Personally, I don't think that's feasible. I sat at the kitchen table the next morning, silently brewing coffee, staring at my empty bank account. The figure glanced behind, as if to subtly accuse. I felt like screaming at some point, so that we may reconnect with them. To obtain an expression of regret, I need to tell them the truth anyhow. Their answer was certain to happen, though, and I knew it. People would believe Ashley. True, they had done it previously. In light of this, I decided what to do. I stopped sending money. No advance warning was given. There is no rationale. Farewell not meant. I would definitely be the unexpected antagonist if I were to portray that role in their narrative. 2 weeks had passed. 1 month from now. It was disheartening to see my parents do nothing. One evening, as I was packing up to leave work, my phone began calling unexpectedly. That was Ashley. I considered ignoring it, but then I remembered that I was curious to hear her response. It was my turn to reply. Her demeanor was hostile and confrontational. Excuse me, but I haven't heard back from you in a while. Hey Lauren, have you seen the money? There is no way I can quit without telling anyone. Your assumption is wrong. The quietness was allowed to blossom. You were fully aware of the consequences, I whispered back. What you're saying is completely lost on me. While you smiled and posted photographs of your dad eating filet mignon, you let them pick me apart. You took 63 cents out of my account and claimed it as your own. Lauren, you're making it up. It was only a name difference. This doesn't matter. I cried out, I care, because I was so frustrated that I was working extra just to pay the rent. Because you were boasting to your friends about how I was your source of funds, it was me. Complete silence. Exhale now. Who gave you that information? She murmured softly. I clarified that my name is Nina, and that I had finally gathered all the necessary details after someone who knows you informed her about you. A tremor ran through Ashley's voice. Modeling isn't easy, and I know you feel the same way. There's no way you can comprehend my struggles. But having said that your statements were incorrect, regarded by them, personal view here, you degraded me so that you might feel good about yourself. I cut off our conversation before she could complete her sentence. There it was. My cries for solitude have ended. The elaboration is complete. I am sick of being an extra in a play that I had no audition for. My confidence, wealth, and peace of mind were all taken from me as I became the antagonist in a scheme they devised. This very second, though, I set out to revise the screenplay. I hadn't exchanged any words with Nina in months. Life had a knack of pulling us in different directions. After college graduation to new locations, new jobs, and new chaos. She was the one I could trust to tell me things as they were without embellishment or drama. Just the facts, please. I needed that more than air after what my parents and Ashley had gone through. She received a text message from me on a Wednesday night. I am looking for a trustworthy friend who can tell me when something is wrong and when it is right. Therefore, I am asking if lunch anytime this week is convenient. Her reply was received a few minutes afterward. No, Nika. Dangerous, I think. Would tomorrow work for you? Time isn't it 12:30? I will deliver tacos and the truth. Near her Manhattan job, we discovered a tranquil spot and met there. Sandwiched between a copy shop and a laundry was a little Mexican establishment. As she took a seat, sunglasses pressed against her forehead, a carnitas taco, which had been mostly consumed, lay in her palm. Upon first sight of me, she raised an eyebrow. You poor thing, it appears like you've been stuck in a rut for a while. I forced myself to crack a weak smile. I feel like I'm juggling the treachery of an entire family on the tip of my tongue, and it's a pull. She essentially simply gave me a taco, asked for me to sit down, and didn't ask any further questions. First things first, on my own, I managed to pull it off. Like shards of glass on a table, I lay it all out to her. The 63 cents the angry phone calls the convoluted tale that made me the villain Ashley's plan, the rainbow account. Silent. Nina had heard it just now. Furrowed brow, vertically aligned teeth. When I finished, she let out a long, piercing breath through her nostrils. I don't even know where to start, she said. Your younger sister is very cunning and evil. Also your parents, I'm afraid. That's an entirely different level of dysfunction. She leaned forward and took a sip from her glass. Lauren, a lady, please be honest with me. Do you think your parents are actually experiencing money problems? Fear gripped me. They were allegedly in debt, according to Ashley. Given their level of anxiety, she looked away from Nina. Do you have any proof that you've observed? I stopped. No, I just put my faith in her. She said that this was our way of showing our appreciation for everything they had done for us as children. Thanks to this, Nina scowled. Remember how they said they wouldn't pay for your college? Well, they sent Ashley to that pricey private school in California. She paid for her own tuition and car, so she was the one who was raised by the escalating prices. The reality hit the chest with a thud. Maybe I was mistakenly thinking that this was my chance to make a difference, to act like a good daughter, and to finally do something they would appreciate. It was Nina's signature look, the "you poor sweet idiot" expression that I recognized. Lauren, a woman, you are a wonderful daughter. No, that is not the issue. What is problematic is that they have taught you to equate loving people with gaining their affection. I swallowed reluctantly. She leaned back, arms crossed. Someone my friend knows through social circles is Ashley. I believe it was through an influencer brunch circle. My friend says that Ashley has been spreading rumors that she is cut off and that her older sister pays all of her bills. Ashley has warned that without your intervention, she would miss her Botox appointments. I blinked as I gestured. Just who is she? As if completely disinterested, Nina nodded. I see. I thought you were living on instant noodles and wearing a construction vest for 12-hour days. It's amusing that she called you boring but rich. A growing sense of wrath settled into my breast. To think that she turned me into the center of her fake little existence is mind-boggling. Are you truly interested in discovering the cause of your parents' purported money problems? It gets worse, was Nina's honest assessment. I stared at her quietly. They went on a vacation to Aspen and bought a new car. Your dad. He's been seen 3 times at the casino in the last 2 months. Discomfort set in. What do you mean? Their security detail happens to be the uncle of one of my friends, so I'd say yes. They said your dad is one of their regular customers who owns the place when it comes to blackjack. It deflated me completely. They claimed to be wealthy while I pretended to be foolish, enduring the cold, going without meals, and working additional shifts. When our eyes met, I felt a surge of emotion. How could I fail to see it? Why did I keep giving when I believed it was love? Across the table, she reached out and grabbed my hand. Goodness gracious, Lauren, that's why. That's it. The people responsible for your protection have your best interests at heart. That in no way makes you weak. It lowers their worth. My mouth was salivating, but I could only nod. I am exhausted, Nina. Being the one to give till I lose it is getting on my nerves. She pushed him to stop bending. End this cycle. As if saying the most fundamental truth, she spoke the words. Maybe that's exactly right. For a long time, I believed that sacrifice would bring me serenity. Still, there was complete silence, existing in solitude. Politeness masks underlying hostility. I felt a hard grip from Nina's hand. They don't have a right to your life savings. They don't have the right to your sanity. You are under no obligation to explain yourself to them. Finally, after what felt like an endless period of holding my breath, I exhaled. You're right, I said softly. With a smile on her face, she responded, Of course I'm right. Hurry and devour your taco before it gets cold. A new chapter is about to begin in your life. Months passed. Nothing. I haven't gotten any messages. No guilt-inducing voicemails. Tornadoes are terrible in the dreadful quiet that precedes their landfall. On Thursday of the next week, as I was preparing to go to work, my phone began flashing unexpectedly. The woman I call Mom. As I looked at the screen, my thumb remained on the red button, but I couldn't help but pick up. It was my turn to reply. Her incisive, concise delivery made it seem like she had hidden her whole message. So I'm assuming you've had enough of acting by now. There was no need for me to speak. I had a complete understanding of her. "Going on," she said. "Since Ashley was forthright with us, I gather you'd rather not deal with the fallout. Does that mean you're okay with acting the way you have?" My jaw was clenched. She could see it clearly. Assuming she had finally realized that the money had stopped coming and Ashley had finally notified them, maybe she was scared they would come after her again, or maybe her pride couldn't take another month of silence. Whatever the situation may be, they knew. No remorse or apology is in order, though. Point fingers. "Your behavior has brought disgrace upon our household," Mom continued. "Putting up with this kind of collapse, you have added unnecessary complexity to the situation." A harsh, deep laugh started to rise in my throat, but I forced myself to control it. Created chaos? So that's life. "You deceived me, Mom," I said calmly. "I was tricked by Ashley. I had no clue that you squandered my precious earnings. On top of that, you made me feel terrible about myself when I hurt myself trying to remain awake." After then, there was a long lull. Her fury flared. "Keep up the good work. Dealing with you has never been simple. Your sister isn't perfect, but she understands what it is to be loyal." It dawned on me then this wasn't a discussion. Something happened here a sale. They would rather have stayed in the shadows. They desire control. I proclaimed that it would not be sent for a single dime. That is not something you get to choose. She became really angry and shouted, "Lauren, we mentioned you. You were dressed and fed by us. I don't see how you could leave us now." Instead of stating I refrained from turning a blind eye, I held back. I was pushed to the side many years ago. At that moment, I heard my dad's voice. "Is Lauren the one?" The confirmation stage was bypassed by him. "I am completely unaware of who you think you are, engaging in such a discourse with your mother, supposedly owing you money." He cut me off dead in my tracks as I was ready to say anything. "The payments can be sent in according to the agreed-upon timetable, or, in any case, we will use the assets from your grandfather's estate to settle your obligation." Slanted was the chamber. "Restate your statement for me." His voice was resolute as he declared, "You heard me. The fact that your grandfather left you a substantial sum of money does not prevent us from lawfully accessing it. Never lose sight of your roots." I let out a gasp. I was left that amount of money by him. Specifically, in complete silence. When I was 15 years old, my dad told me that he had put money aside just in case you ever need to get out. I understood it as a metaphor, but Dad had a point. But now it appeared like he had expected this whole thing. I firmly stated, "You touch that money, and I swear," while shaking my head in warning. "What?" My mom lost her voice, and I could hear her. "Listen, my love, I'll tell you what. Are you going to quit chatting with us? I thought you had it before, didn't you?" Then she pronounced it. "It only takes one statement to change everything. A daughter like you is unnecessary." Slapping oneself in the face was the best way to describe it. Nobody shouted, no tears shed. All I did was just expressed it. Absolute heartlessness. No one matters to you except yourself. Without acknowledgement, she said this was your character from the start. Ashley may make some blunders, but at least she's trying. You, on the other hand, are just resentful. Additionally, I accomplished the unprecedented feat of controlling my tears. No damage came to me. After going through that, I felt devoid of emotion. As if a final cord had snapped, the electricity suddenly goes off. "Tell me what you want to do," I told you, "but please never again contact me." The call stopped suddenly, inspired by compassion instead of anger. exclusively for my benefit. I stood in my hallway, hands clenched around my keys, and my purse slung over my shoulder, as if nothing had happened while the early sun slanted through the curtains. Everything had, though. Somebody had gone too far. At long last, the door shut. Even though I was frightened to open the legal folder that held letters and a watch that my grandpa had given me, I eventually pried open the long hidden box under my bed later that night. I certainly did. On the inside of the simple form, which listed me as the sole beneficiary of the trust, my name, Lauren Elizabeth Ward, was printed in bold. They were unable to enter lawfully. One soul. Gambling was only a front. After shutting the folder, I sat down to some quiet reflection. To put it reasonably, allow me to elaborate. For a long time, I felt responsible for my low self-esteem because I couldn't let go, but I had been tough enough to stay. Finally, I gathered the courage to go. After my talk with my parents, I felt like something had shifted inside of me. It was the type of simplified, uncomplicated experience that makes you feel like you just got up after a long night of sleepwalking without a dramatic breakdown or shouting into the nothingness. At last, a grown-up, I wasn't just getting by. I was making the most of every moment. Nobody put up a show. I didn't want to waste time trying to fit in when I knew I would never be accepted. I was alone, no one else, unprocessed, battered, but free. My look altered, but no one at work noticed. I didn't want to share my sudden understanding on social media, so I didn't. I straightened my back and stopped apologizing and contracting whenever an idea came to me, and people paid attention. My boss called me into his office after a client meeting. He shut the door, sat down, and said, "You will be in charge of the company audit for March. This one is massive, so whatever has changed recently, keep doing it. I'm confused." Someone at least 5 years my senior should have gotten the job. Nodding, I tried to keep my cool, even though my feelings were all over the place. I texted Nina that very night. Me, it appears as though my promotion occurred at a glacial pace. Just let rid of all the extra weight you were carrying. I warned you, though it was all Nina. It was her argument. My recent credential, which was accompanied by a salary increase and a generous benefits package, has finally taken effect, and I will soon be receiving an offer to relocate to the Santa Monica regional office. Changing careers, new zip code, new salary. Inhaling what felt like pure air was a first for me. After looking at a few apartments in the West, I leased a 2-bedroom condo that was a block from the beach and had quiet, unobtrusive lighting. Also, I was the one who owned it. I eventually got my hands on a second-hand espresso machine. Something I'd wanted for a long time but was scared to spend money on. Now every morning, I stand at the kitchen window sipping my coffee slowly, while I watch the sun rise over the Pacific, envisioned a different life, except that it wasn't. It was just my life free from the weight of other people's shame. My reading resumed lengthy books full of soul and quiet, and I fearlessly walked barefoot along the coast. I enrolled in a kickboxing class, not to burn calories, but to burn fury, and it was effective. At last, I said when I worked on weekends. I stumbled into an old folder while sorting through moving boxes on a Saturday. I had started a vision board years ago, but it was never completed. It included a lady on a beach holding a briefcase with the words, "Live a life you don't need to recover from," pasted on it. I remained still gazing at it while quietly laughing. Without realizing it, I was building that very existence. Then one day on my walk home from work, I caught sight of a familiar person positioned at the corner outside my building. She wore an excessively oversized coat relative to her stature and possessed a slouched posture. That was Ashley. Her delicate locks stood in stark contrast to her weathered face, and her colored blonde hair appeared coarse. The years had crushed her like a ton of bricks, and she appeared to be trying to conceal them with her meticulously applied makeup. For a moment, the thought occurred to me that perhaps I was hallucinating her. She stopped moving the moment she saw me. After that, I did not move. She made her way over to me with caution, staring at my face, my clothes, and my new possession, my bag, declaring, "You appear different." She went on, her voice cracking slightly above a whisper. No one responded. She looked down at the street below. "For the time being, at least, I would like to know whether it is all right if I stay with you." I blinked as I gestured. "You cheated our parents, Ashley. You cheated me. You made me the bad guy in your tale. You squandered my money and pride." She did not put up any fight and did not provide any explanations. "I was afraid you wouldn't be able to survive without them," she said instead. The truth, ugly, complex, and delicate, was exposed. She sabotaged me not out of avarice, but because she thought I would fail if I tried to break free of the system that she thrived in. However, I had. Now it was her who was being left out in the weather. I took a long breath. "Ashley, you ought to depart." Her only action was to nod, and she remained completely still. As she walked away, I sensed a relief, feeling no consolation, instead pursuing retribution. Not much more. Writing a letter to my grandpa was an act of bravery I'd never done before that night. "Grandpa, Uncle, if only you could see me now, I pray you would be happy. You warned that I could need an escape plan, but I was wrong. Instead of running away, I utilized what you provided me to start afresh. Some violets are in bloom. Greetings, beloved." Hi there, Lauren. Actually, they were everywhere. Not in scenery, but in my choices and attitude. I used to relish the prospect of stepping out of bed each morning. This was not your average chance for advancement. I experienced a state of utter vitality I had never before experienced. It had been 2 months since Ashley had shown up at my home when I heard a knock. That wasn't her, no. My parents weren't involved, no. A man with a spine-tingling grin and a document in his hand met me in a gray blazer. "Willard, Emily," he asked. Fear gripped me. "Oh, really? Do you recognize Charles and Elaine Ward? If so, they are clients of ours at Westbrook Consumer Finance." I clenched my jaw. Despite my hesitance, I finally said, "They're my parents." He flinched. "We are trying to get things back in balance, and it appears that someone has used you as a reference for a loan application. What's worse is that they've gone bankrupt. Would you be willing to talk about their current financial situation?" I stood motionless, meeting his gaze. I said quite formally, "I am not acquainted with those individuals. I am in no way financially connected to them. They removed anything they required from my possessions without asking." He blinked quickly in surprise. "I understand. Your time is very valued." He removed himself from the situation as soon as he placed a business card in my hand. After he left, I waited for what seemed like an age at the doorway, my pulse racing. They were planning to lend me money. The efforts to seize continued. Later that night, I got in touch with Nina. When the bell rang twice, she picked up the phone. "Please tell me this isn't another ambush on a family." A worse sigh escaped me as they once again attempted to profit from my guile. "I am amazed," they continue. She whistled softly. "I don't see why you think they'll come back. In my opinion, those individuals will not stop stealing until they find nothing more to take. She was totally right. I didn't realize there was more cash on the way when it happened. A coworker of mine from our days at the New Jersey accounting firm got in touch with me later that week. He'd been influenced by a rumor about my dad. In his texts, a simple "hey" emerged. "Do you recall the time when your dad worked at Union Freight?" "Certainly," I responded. "I think he's working for a building site right now. It's far from Hoboken, and he's just there during the day moving expendable agency supplies." It seemed perplexing at first. I thought cufflinks were appropriate for my dad whenever he went grocery shopping, but now I'm not so sure. He was fired from his job a long time ago, but I always assumed he had retired early or picked up some consulting gigs here and there. Ashley has always insisted on that. After sending Ashley's wealth to a talent agency that promised to help her break into acting, he realized that his only safety net, the severance he received when he left Union Freight, was gone. The agency, of course, didn't exist. It was all a hoax. The studio was meticulously prepared right down to the fictional office space and paperwork. They disappeared a week after the funds were transferred. While my dad wired over $60,000 to push Ashley's dream forward, my mom discreetly took out loans and mortgaged their remaining house. And just like that, it was gone. Feeling devastated, Ashley tried her hand at low-level jobs like local advertisements, promo booths, and cocktail bars, but nothing stayed. Despite her domestic success, her once celebrated attitude left her banned in the real world. The type of cool, dimly lit dive bar you only see in movies, the real deal with broken bar chairs, low lighting, and a jukebox that played nothing but country music. From the 90s, that's where Nina was discovered bartending by one of her friends in Trenton. She looked absolutely nothing like Ashley, Nina gushed as she showed me a photo and told me so. Her eyes had lost their luster, her posture had sagged, and she had smeared her makeup. As Nina muttered, "She's transformed," the woman seemed bewildered. Some part of me wanted a visceral reaction, feeling depressed, guilty, angry, and ashamed. Space, nevertheless, was all I could perceive. The cold, unfeeling sort wasn't what I had in mind. What I meant was the actual distance that had grown as a result of time and healing. I didn't find out about my parents' bankruptcy until much later in life. They sold the house and moved into a small apartment in a low-income senior complex. Fine dining has gone out of style, vacations are over, absolute silence and bills. Curiously, I helped support my family by working weekend shifts at the same construction business, where my dad later obtained a dispatch position. It was lovely sarcasm. During my time there, I became friends with a coworker, and one day she texted me, "Hey, a completely random question. Who was your father, Charles Ward?" I stared, captivated by the screen. "Indeed, tell me why. He could be working here presently. Last week we started." Almost didn't mention his daughter's previous job as a security guard. Accused her of devoting far too much time for her own benefit. My fingertips remained firmly planted on the keyboard. No one responded. But Ashley was always switching bars, going through firings, rehires, then let go again. Her once powerful beauty was swiftly fading due to a cocktail of stress alcohol and the harsh reality of her years of entitlement. When you're unreliable, nobody cares how beautiful you are. That was someone I once heard. It was reasonable. Despite this, I didn't hate her. No more. Someone showed empathy, yet they kept their distance politely. Seeing a ship go down while knowing you sent a lifeboat overboard once while standing on the seashore, instead than being expelled. I was never contacted by anybody. Indeed, she is not, disregarding them. Being quiet is seen as a manifestation of hostility by some. But where do I stand? A sense of calm pervaded, created and safeguarded. I had ceased to be their pivotal member, and the moment I did, the whole thing came crashing down. Half a decade has passed. Life has an interesting way of putting itself back together after you let the past. Perched on a bench outside a little white chapel with a view of the water, I found myself in Miami. The wind was light and airy like the ocean. Sunlight streaming in through the big windows gave the space a warm golden glow. That day, Nina was to be married. Her stunning good looks reflected in her sophisticated satin dress, and her eyes sparkled with the unique combination of joy and self-confidence that comes from finding someone who accepts you just the way you are. Evan, her spouse, stood at her side, hands clasped and a perpetual smile on his face. Despite the short duration of our acquaintance, it was adequate. The look on Nina's face said it all about his mood. The ceremony was simple, honest. Dramatic flourishes and forced speech are not to be expected. Just a pair making a pact to pick each other over and over again. I sat near the front, dressed in a dress I had bought just to make myself feel good. Confidence felt as snug as a well-loved old shirt now. You are not seeing a play, clear and unambiguous. As soon as the vows were said and the joyous music faded into soft jazz, Nina came over to the reception to see me. The person she wanted you to meet was described with sparkling eyes. Whoa, that cracked me up. On your wedding day, you're not playing matchmaker seriously. Say no. She shrugged her shoulders in response. Thanks for giving me space to grow. I'll be happy to do the same for you. Following this, she turned around, and a man whose features I couldn't place stood behind her. His sun-kissed skin, towering stature, and sleeves that were rolled up to show strong forearms were all enhanced by the crookedness of his smile, which also revealed his genuine and easygoing laughing and contributed to his attractiveness. He goes by the name Nick, and Nina presented him as Evan's friend. Architect of multi-story structures, his own Santa Barbara business reports directly to him. Nick reached out and extended a hand. So, you're the Lauren, he said, his smile making me feel sick to my stomach. I guess it depends on your level of awareness, I said. The air was filled with his laughing, easy as pie, low level of disturbance, real. Champagne and the salty sea air carried our conversations, while the sound of dancing and laughing echoed across the room. Even more astonishing than our cordial connection was the fact that I felt absolutely safe. How people see it. Nick was uninterested in hearing about my family history. He didn't try to impress me in any way. He wanted to know what I was reading, so he asked. I was particularly drawn to these cities, the projects that made me smile at work. He acted as though he was uninterested in listening to the most arcane details. Afterwards, he escorted me to the shore. We stood barefoot in the beach as the sky became purple. He looked at me with kind eyes. He wanted to know whether this was how you usually relaxed. No, I said with a smile, but I earned it. That night, as I slept in my hotel room, I wrote in my journal for the first time in months. I used to think that getting back to how I was before the injury was essential to recovery. It falls short instead because healing involves becoming a new person who can endure pain, develop from it, and go on. I am now her. It made me think of my grandfather, and I hoped he would approve. The promise that the violets will bloom was reiterated. Yes, it is correct. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel completely alone. For a long time, I firmly believed that love required self-sacrifice. To be the best person, sister, and daughter I could be, I had to give a little. Slim down. Proceed till I disappear. This fact, though, was something I had hoped to learn sooner. Love isn't unconditional love. Take charge in the hands of another. Shame and responsibility are masks for compulsion. When I was younger, I thought my strength was measured by my ability to endure a certain amount. I may be quite quiet, what I could provide without condition or expectation of compensation. For a long time, I sat back and let other people describe me. I never even took up a pen, right up until I actually did it. The tide turned at that moment. I started to breathe again in that lonely room after a terrible separation from my family. The area was dirty. No one apologized. No significant makeups were done. The most important thing I've learned is that it's okay to be sad for a genuine person. You may still feel hurt by a relationship that turned out differently than you had anticipated. I used to have a lot of remorse over it, but that's no more. It has dawned on me that remaining silent is a powerful statement, not a sign of weakness. A simple no does not constitute impoliteness. The act of departing can sometimes be the most loving response. Also, I want to address someone specifically if they are hearing and are having trouble. Striking a balance between being responsible and being respectful. Keeping bleeding is not necessary to demonstrate your concern. It is not your responsibility to persuade people who are resistant to change. Lending money is not within your purview. Everyone knows that a bandage isn't you. Someone else will consider you a hero, but not you. It is up to you to decide what to do, to get back on your feet, to grow, to thrive apart from your past. In order to experience true love, you need not break yourself. Boundaries won't eliminate them. With grace, they will try their best to meet you where you are. Who cares about the others? Knock them off their feet. A person's shared ancestry should not be used as an excuse to remain in an undesirable relationship. Blood ties aren't the only defining factor in a family. Punctuality is paramount. Everyone needs to listen. Someone who sticks by you through thick and thin. Even if you end up surpassing them, those who are rooting for your progress will still cheer you on. That is the lesson. It is the one for which I sacrificed my life. What if sharing my story here saves another person from going through what I went through? Afterwards, maybe it had been beneficial, because what I've discovered, do not even think of attempting to remove the pain. The goal is to build a life apart from the grip of that misery, a life that is totally dedicated to you. Last but not least, mine does too.